Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission says it is in court today as processes are in motion to appoint a receiver to take over the assets of over 50 investment houses whose licenses were revoked last week. The SEC says the 53 firms failed to meet regulatory requirements and were cautioned several times over the breaches. Director and Head of Issuers Department of the Commission, Dr. Jacob Edu, told me on the AM show that government would offer some relief to investors while the liquidation processes are ongoing.
That now, the monies are in the investments that the fund managers claim to have put those monies into.
Right.
What will be done going forward is that the SEC does not have the power to directly appoint a liquidator.
Okay.
So the Registrar General will now go to court to petition the court to appoint it as the liquidator. From then on, we expect that to take place this week. From then on, a validation process will be rolled out where investors would go there with their receipts, their investment certificates to the liquidator and the people that they will be working with.
Right.
So those investments could be validated and steps taken by the liquidator to retrieve, to trace, and to realize some of these assets, out of which some monies can be realized to pay investors whose monies are locked up. And even before then, government is also trying to give investors some initial relief, because this process might be long, since it's going to go to the court. I mean, it could be long. So government in the meantime will provide some relief to investors as we wait for the liquidator to realize the assets to the fullest extent possible and pay investors whose money is
Can you tell us a bit more about this relief from government? How will it work? How much will it be?
Well, we don't have figures to it yet, but government has agreed in principle to provide some relief to investors whose monies are locked up at the moment, pending payment by the liquidator to such investors. Right. It has been agreed in principle, but the amounts involved, we don't have the figures to tell.
Will that process be managed by SEC?
No, it will be managed by the liquidator through the banks. Through some banks will be appointed where people can go submit their receipts and certificates for validation, right. and some monies paid to assuage some of their challenges in the meantime.
Okay. Meanwhile, Group Indom, majority shareholder of Black Shield Capital Management, says it is disappointed by the SEC's handling of the company. Dr. Jacob Edu says the investment firm failed to honor several demands for documentation on aspects of their activities. He said the fund management firm was carrying out a migration exercise without approval from SEC.
Gold Coast is one of the entities that the SEC, has engaged longest. Gold Coast have been allowed to submit proposals here and there, but in all those things that they did, they were not meeting our requirements. You ask them to go bring this, sometimes they don't turn up. But we are not to talk about Gold Coast as a firm now. They wanted to put up what they call the Cardinal Trust Fund or Cardinal Master Trust Fund or something that they were going to migrate these investors whose monies are locked up in guaranteed returns onto. You can't just move people into another scheme when you don't have the approval of the regulator. So we asked you to come and submit a formal proposal to the SEC. After a while, they created that complaint. They submitted something to us. We said, this thing that we have submitted is not enough. Please go back, redo it, and come back. As we sit here, they have not come back. All that we hear is they are in the news, claim to be migrating people onto a scheme or a product that the SEC has not approved. So we have actually allowed them all the time. But unfortunately, they prefer to do what they wanted to do. And I remember when when the public was made aware of this, they came back saying, why do we want to, like always, the regulator is always accused of destroying somebody's business. But that is not, there must be a balance between you creating wealth for yourself and also protecting other people's money. There must be a balance. So we cannot be sitting down looking on for you to do what you like when we don't think it is safe for investors.
Now, my colleague Nancy Emefra-Jiradosi has been touring some of the affected entities, and this is what she found out.
It's exactly 3 days since the Securities and Exchange Commission on Friday announced that some 53 financial services and fund management licenses have been revoked. Today, I am currently standing at the Gold Coast Fund Management, and virtually the place is empty. When we came, the only person we spotted in the premises is a security officer who told me that on Friday, officials from SEC had arrived here and locked up the place with their own padlocks and keys, and also asked that he manages the place and takes care of the place as they return today to take stock of what is happening. But when I got here, I realized that the flags of the company, which has to do with the fund management and also the advisory, is instead of flying around, it's actually flying at half-mast, which sort of is supposed to indicate that they are actually not in operation. But one thing I also noticed when I got here was the fact that the SEC statement, which came out on Friday, has been posted on the wall of this particular company, which is now defunct. And so if you get close, you'd see that all the 5 pages of this particular statement by the Securities and Exchange Commission have been posted. So here you see notice of revocation of license of fund management companies and notification of the registrar of companies notice. All these particular 5 notices, which contains the name of Gold Coast Securities, have been posted here just to indicate to customers and also investors that the company is currently defunct. And so basically here at the Gold Coast Securities, nothing is happening. We were expecting earlier that at least we would have customers massing up here to find out what exactly is happening. But we've been here for the past 20 to 30 minutes and absolutely nothing is happening, except that, you know, the security man who is in there is still keeping the place clean and doing his work as instructed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. At the First Bank Financial Service, officials of the Securities and Exchange Commission were seen on the premises of the company. Security men were standing by the gate, waiting to turn away customers who have plans of entering the premises of the company. During our 15-minute wait at the First Bank Financial Service, a customer enters but is denied entry into the premises. He tells JoyNews the money he has is meant for his wife's operation.
We are all Ghanaians. Akufo-Addo, we vote for you. So unjidia, koran kobisa mama. Since from Friday, I couldn't sleep on my bed. Almost 70,000. Look, there's a letter here. My wife is going to do anesthesia. We beg, pleading for this, our sweat. It is our sweat. It is our sweat. Then tomorrow when I wake up, somebody will come and call me, or somebody can come to my office and say, and please, go and do, and we want this investment firm has come already. We are fools. We no go do that again. If you have money, go and buy land and starting doing farming for Preco. That one could be better.
Meanwhile, the situation was the same at the All-Time Capital Limited. The entire place was closed down, the gates were locked. Officials of SEC are spotted with their laptops on the compound of the company, with the security men waiting to also turn away customers.